Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first Tabadul of 2025, and thank you for being part of the AMWAJ community once again. My name is Claudia Rodríguez. I work as a communicator officer at REVOLVE and AMWAJ, and I will be moderating this session as we explore the crucial role of journalism in driving change through a climate justice lens. A little introduction for those who are joining us for the first time. AMWAJ is a non-profit initiative from the communication group REVOLVE that brings together different actors from all over the Mediterranean to improve the water narrative, promote sustainable solutions, and collaborate with concrete actions in the region. Tabadul is how we call our regular events, a dedicated space and time to connect with inspiring initiatives, to connect with experts, to enhance knowledge exchange on effective communication approaches and best practices in journalism. We are gathering today to celebrate World Water Day that happened last Saturday on 22 of March. This day is a call to action for government, organizations, individuals to prioritize water conservation and management initiatives as billions of people worldwide lack access to safe and clean water. And as you all know, many places around the world are experiencing water scarcity and pollution. On this occasion, for World Water Day, we have prepared a little surprise for you, a little introduction to this Tabadul. So we are glad to share with you today the trailer of a short film, which is called Along the Water by Rebecca Talk. This film is part of a broader initiative, Biodiversity and Cinema, which is a newly founded collective in Lebanon that brings together creative documentaries focused on biodiversity conservation. This short film highlights challenges faced by water and nature, the importance of biodiversity, and how nature positively impacts mental health and emotional well-being. Rebecca, if you are here with us, I think Rebecca is in the audience, I'm not sure. If you're here, you can join us and give us a few more details on this initiative before we launch the trailer.
Hello, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, it's good, Rebecca. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. I'm not sure if I'm mute or not. That's why, because all right. So hello, everyone. So yeah, it's the initiative started about 1.5 years ago in Lebanon, where environmentalists and filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, were stayed in one house for 1 week, and we were exchanging ideas and the importance to highlight on biodiversity preservation in Lebanon. And we came up with ideas, which later on we filmed, and now we have a total of 8 films that we are touring with. For the main purpose is to raise awareness and about preservation, the importance of preservation, and to bring the stories and the challenges that the nature in Lebanon is facing right now in a creative way. And my film Along the Water is the main theme is water. It's a poetic film where we follow the river in reverse from the sea till we reach the highest mountain in the Middle East, which is the biggest water reserve where we have a lot of snow. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the trailer.
Thank you, Rebecca. Let's watch the trailer.
طبعا بتقدر توصل لطرابلس. من بلكون بيت أهلي كنت بقدر شوف البواخر والقطار وكنت أسمعهم.
بكندا، أمي فرنساوية، وكنا عم نرجع على لبنان مرة كل سنتين.
ثلج هاي رياح زيران.
Well, thank you very much, Rebecca, for sharing with us the trailer of this short film Along the Water. That's not the only one. There are 8 in total on this initiative. So we're going to keep an eye on it, and we'll be promoting this series of short films also from AMWAJ. So we'll give you more details on social media if there are screenings and about the filmmakers. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining us today. Let's now introduce the topic of today's Tabadul and the speakers. With today's webinar, we aim to delve into how to approach climate journalism from a climate justice framework. As journalists and communicators, we have the power, but also the responsibility to ensure that the most affected voices by climate change are heard, and that the complexities of these issues are reported with accuracy and fairness. We are honored to have today leading experts in investigative journalism with us, who will be sharing their experiences and insights on reporting climate justice effectively. This session has been prepared in collaboration with our media partners, ARIJ, Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism, represented today by senior investigative journalist and fact-checker Ahmed Ashour, as well as Marea Media, other media partners from AMWAJ, represented today by freelance journalists and co-founders as well, Sofia Turati and Vittoria Torsello. Thank you very much to the 3 of you for being present with us today. Before we give them the floor, we'll also have a quick look to the agenda so it's clear for everybody. So as we were mentioning, we will first introduce this topic of climate justice and its relevance for journalists with Ahmed, who has co-developed the Climate Justice Through an Investigative Lens guide as part of the Saraka for Inclusive Climate Action project. It's a guide that provides journalists with the tools and knowledge to effectively report on climate issues. This resource is only available in Arabic for now, but this webinar will give non-Arabic speakers a first-hand look at the tool and also many insights from Ahmed and his experience as a reporter. Following this keynote presentation, Marea Media team will take the floor to present 2 case studies of collaborative journalistic coverage of climate-related stories through a climate justice lens. They will be focusing on the socio-economic and political impacts of climate change in local communities. So first, Vittoria will present the needs and stories from small-scale fishermen in Spain and Italy, faced to the lack of grassroots resources, as most of the EU funding is often favoring industrial interest. While Sofia will be presenting the fight against the new pipeline in the heart of the Italian Apennine Mountains. Both of them will be discussing their methodology, the publication process, community-driven solutions to climate challenges in these stories, and we hope you will be asking questions for the 3 of them on all of this. At the end of the session, that's why we'll have a Q&A session between this audience and the speakers. So please don't hesitate to drop your questions in the Q&A chat, and we'll try to cover as many as possible. So to begin exploring today's topic, I am delighted to pass the floor to our expert speaker, Ahmed Ashour. As I mentioned before, he will be helping us to break down what climate justice truly means and why it is essential for journalists to frame their work through this lens. Ahmed, over to you.
Thank you, Claudia. Actually, it is so nice to be invited by you to attend this webinar and to introduce my experience in climate justice and what is the difference between the climate justice and climate journalism or climate change journalism. Because yes, there are intersections, there are overlaps between both of them, but actually there are some slightly differences. And we as a journalists, we need to focus more on the climate justice, not only climate change, because as you know, that is climate justice, it is affected the human beings. And as journalists, we are focusing on the humans, especially in the Middle East and North Africa, where the people can be described as losers. When it comes to the climate change, we have winners and losers. And in Arab countries, actually, we have a lot of losers when it comes to the climate change because they are suffering from the lack of the resources and the lack of adaptations to the climate change impacts. So I wanted to share my screen and to walk you through the presentation that I have prepared. So I think that it is visible for you or not. Please let me know. Yes. Oh.
Yes, it's good, Ahmed.
Yeah, so it's good. So as you know, that's a climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns, primarily caused by human activities such as burning fossil fuels and deforestation and industrial processes. But when we wanted to tackle climate justice, we need actually to hold the responsibility for the people who are causing the climate change or who are involved in the activities that can lead to the climate change. So who is responsible for the human activities leading to the climate change? So here, as we are focusing on climate justice, we wanted to highlight the significant disparities between developed and developing countries regarding historical responsibility for green gas emissions. As you know, that the developed countries contribute more to the climate change because actually they contribute more to the greenhouse gas emissions. But the developed countries are affected more by the climate change. So we have here significant disparities between both of them. Also, in the same societies, the lower class and upper class, there are big gaps between both of them because the upper class people contribute more to the climate change more than the lower class people. But the lower class people are more suffering from the climate change impacts. For example, the fishers who are suffering because of the lack of the fishes, for example, and the people who are suffering from the flooding and they have a poor infrastructure that can help them to resist to the flooding, for example, and the indigenous people who are suffering and struggling with the forest fires and who are suffering from the deforestations. So here we wanted to turn from environmental issue to ethical and social issue.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ahmed. We're very sorry. We are not seeing your slides. Are you going over them?
Yes, I'm going.
Okay, I think your computer is frozen maybe. Let's try again because we are in the first one. So sorry about interrupting you.
No
If they are
problem.
not working, we can also share them. Let's try again. Now it's good.
Can you see it right now?
Yes, now we can see how you pass them. Maybe go to full screen to see.
Yes.
Yes, and go back to the end. Yeah, now it's good.
Yeah, okay. So as I have mentioned, there is a difference between climate change and the climate justice. Climate justice highlights more the significant disparities between developed and the developing countries, or even in the same society, the disparities between the lower class and upper class when it comes to the responsibility for green gas emissions and ability to bear the costs of adapting to the impacts of the climate change. So we are focusing on something environmental and scientific. It is at the first stage, and afterwards that will go deeper to highlight the inequalities, disparities, and also the fairness. So it is something important for us as a reporters to underline the human beings and their suffer from the climate impacts and to shed a light on the disparities, inequalities, as I will mention after that. So I have came across this significant paper or study issued by Oxfam, and it shares that carbon emissions of riches constitute 1% more than double those of poorest half of the world. So it can also underline the gap between the poorest people and wealthy people when it comes to the climate change impacts and when it comes to the people who bear the costs of the impacts of the climate change. And as I have mentioned that there are losers, there are winners, and among the losers, there are groups who are most vulnerable to the impacts of the climate change. As I have mentioned, the developing countries and the small islands countries, because they contribute less than the developed countries to the climate change and to the greenhouse gas emissions, although they bear the costs of the climate change and suffer more from the impacts of the climate change. Also, the poor communities, because of the lack of the resources, they can't adapt and they can't resist to the climate change impacts, such as the flooding, the rainfall, the storms, the forest fires, the desertifications. The farmers, for example, who depend economically on the agricultural land, they are suffering from the erosion and the drought of their lands. That's why actually we are focusing on the climate justice. Also the women, especially the women farmers. As you know, that the women farmers constitute the majority of the farmers who are working in the farming lands. And when the farmlands were affected by the climate change and were affected by the droughts, they have been forced to displace, and that's why those lives have been affected by the climate change and they can't afford their livelihood. So the elderly people and the children, they are suffering from health diseases related to the climate change more than others. And individuals with disabilities, because of the limitation of movement, they can't evacuate quickly when it comes to the during natural disasters, during forest fires, and during also flooding. They are facing some challenges and a problem to evacuation or mobility. So it is also a big problem. And I think that you have come across many images that's coming from the refugees camps from Lebanon and from the Syrian refugees camps and from Gaza. And you can see that the people are struggling with the rainfalls, with the snowing, and with the heat waves and extreme weather conditions, and they can't adapt to it. So they are more vulnerable people than others to the impacts of the climate change. So here I think that's the difference between climate change journalism and the climate justice journalism is clear for you. Climate journalism or climate change journalism addresses the causes and the impacts of the climate change. Also, climate justice addresses the causes and the impact of the climate change, but it is at the first stage. After that, we wanted to go deeper to expose the inequalities and the disparities related to extreme weather events and the climate change, whether at international level or within individual countries. So we want to focus to the human rights, to the fairness when reporting on the climate crisis, not only to expose the impacts and the causes of climate change and to build this causal link between both of them. It is so important, but it is not enough. We wanted to go deeper and we wanted to hold the winners, the people who get benefits from the climate change, into accountable, and also to give fairness and to give voice for the people who are losers when it comes to the impacts of the climate change. So we have a methodology and the many questions, and it's included in the manual and the guide we have developed the last year, climate justice through investigative lens. We have a set of questions and we need to get answers for these questions. It is simple methodology when it comes to reporting about climate justice. So what is the environmental issues affecting the community in the city or the village. So it is something environmental. And if we wanted to take an example, for example, the forest fire. So there is a causal link between the forest fires and the climate change, but sometimes actually it can't be attributed to the climate change. The forest fires can be caused by the human beings, can be caused by deliberately, or it is not deliberately. So it can be attributed and traced back to the climate change, and sometimes it can't be attributed to the climate change. So we will depend on the scientific paper. We approach the scientists and ask them to explain the phenomena of the forest fires. We can depend on the investigation by authorities about the causes of the forest fires in any area. And if we can build this causal link between the forest fire and the climate change, we can go deeper and we can actually focus on indigenous people, especially after the forest fire and deforestation and the clearance of the forests. Many investment projects have been established in this area, and actually it comes on the costs of the indigenous people who depend on the products of the forests. So there are the losers from the deforestations, and we want actually to focus on this issue. They are the losers of the deforestations and the people who get benefits from deforestations, and they established many investments and investment projects. They are the winners of the deforestations. So actually here we wanted to show the inequalities when it comes to the forest fires. So it is a main methodology. And also I wanted to give you another case study from North Africa. As I have mentioned, women farmers are affected by climate change, are affected by drought. And it is one of the significant report about the women farmers in Tunisia with this title, Women Farmers in Tunisia, Social Injustice Exacerbated by Climate Change. So the main topic of this report is about climate change and also about climate justice. Actually, it tackles the drought affecting the Tunisian community, the cause of it, climate change and lack of rainfall, and the affected people, the whole farmers in Tunisia in general, and with rural women being particularly impacted. So we have here unequal impact because the rural women are the most vulnerable to the effects of climate change because they are depending economically on the agricultural land. And after the erosion of cultivated land, they can't ever their livelihood, and they have been forced to displace, to search for an alternative for economic resources. So we have here the unequal impact and the consequences, and also this report get evidences about the causal link between the impacts, these phenomena, the erosion of cultivated land or the drought, and the climate change. And also it went deeper to describe the life of the woman after drought. So I think that it is one of the significant examples from North Africa about climate change and the climate justice. Also, I wanted to share with you this one of the most significant tools that can help us to cover water issues. And this tool set is called Adequate, and it is issued by the World Resource Institute. It provides a set of tools and databases on water and flood risks. It can give us data about the availability or scarcity of water in a specific geographic area, the impact of water availability and the drought on crop abundance in a given region, and the risks of coastal and river flooding. I think that time is up, but I wanted to show you one of these data set. This data set actually describes the water scarcity. I think that it is visible for you. And from the first glance, you can show that the Middle East and North Africa is the most region that is affected by the water stress and water depletion. So here you can go through the features and you can see actually the data from any country about the water in this country. So if you press here, you can get the data, you can run the analysis from any geographic area, and you can get the data. You can compare between many areas and many regions. And you can download the data, and you can navigate the data, and you can conduct a data-driven story based on this tool. So I encourage you actually to go through this tool and go through the guide that we have developed in the last year. I think that's my presentation can encourage you to go deeper and to report about climate justice, because it is something important for the journalists, not only in the Middle East and North Africa, but from any corner in the world. And thank you. The floor is yours, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. That was very insightful presentation. I think also the tool that you have been sharing couldn't fit better to this World Water Day webinar. So I hope it will be useful for the journalists in the room. Thank you very much. And don't hesitate to write your questions in the Q&A box for Ahmed. So after we'll have some time for him to respond. And I was about to say, let's move from theory to practice, but Ahmed, you already introduced actually the practice very well. So it links perfectly with will come next. So we have with us two incredible journalists from Marea Media, which is a media organization dedicated to bringing out underreported stories from southern Italy and the Mediterranean in general. So please welcome Sofia Turati and Vittoria Torsello, and the floor is yours now.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Claudia, thank you, Ahmed, thank you, Marta, and all REVOLVE and AMWAJ team for including us. It's a pleasure to be here and to bring these two case studies about two investigations that Vittoria and I separately conducted with two teams, and that are concerning what Ahmed was saying about cases of environmental and climate justice through the lens of change and impact. So Vittoria, maybe can you share the screen? And so we can say just a few words about our organization, Marea Media. Okay, I see, sorry, it took a while. Okay, so let's go to the first slide. What is Marea Media? It's a no-profit organization. I don't see the next slide, but maybe it's me.
Wait, I'm trying to shift.
Thank you. Okay, this is us. So Marea Media, it's an organization born in 2024 in Naples. It's a no-profit and collective of journalists, freelancers, and other kinds of media professionals. We are in different parts of Europe, but mostly based in Naples. And our focus is to bring non-stereotypical and unbiased representation of Southern Italy and the Mediterranean. What do we do? Next slide. We do it through media literacy workshops and in some schools. We do it through community building events where we try to bridge the gaps between journalism and communities and to bring them back what they give also to journalism. So this kind of event, for example, also with other media professionals as well. And then, of course, by doing journalism, so in-depth, solution-oriented investigative reporting trying to bring these constructive narratives about southern Italy and the Mediterranean region. So now, first up is Vittoria with her case study. So I leave the floor to her. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Sofia, for the introduction of Marea, and thank you to AMWAJ for inviting us to this to discuss about our work and share the floor with other great journalists. So, like, yeah, this is the story we'll be working on. It's mostly about small fishers. We tried to and how they were facing the climate crisis burdens, but not only, also like we were trying to hold accountable at the European level why their condition was further worsened, you know, by mismanagement of EU funds. So this is the team that conducted the investigation, which focused on it was on a cross-border methodology that included 2 countries. I was in charge for Italy, and Natalie and Naomi were mostly covering for Spain. And we got in touch because we had already some previous experience about covering this topic, like especially fishers and how they can be, you know, like they're just there with their stories vocal about the climate crisis that they experience in their everyday life. So first, this specific presentation, I will focus on the Italian case study, but if you have questions about the Spanish one, I will try to answer as well. And also, if you want to reach out to the other talented journalists that I had the pleasure to work with, I'm also available to reconnect with you. And wait. So I will try to go to take you through some of the steps of our investigation. As I say, we first formed a team and through this networking platform that is Climate Arena, and is mostly groups, freelance journalists focusing on climate and environmental issues, and therefore we decided to apply with a journalism fund grant. I'm sure most of you may know what it is, but if you don't know, then I suggest to apply to secure grant with EU funds that will allow you to have sort of independence in your reporting, which is crucial. It was crucial for us as freelance journalists to cover this topic. Then we planned the reporting for about 1 month, where we were studying and interviewing experts and trying to already understand the main characters and the people who we wanted to focus more on. And once we understood, like then we went on the ground, and we decided to start from the most affected, from the mussel farmers, and starting from after all the studying and the interviews, starting from the most affected to center our storytelling and narrative around them, allowed us to better understand, you know, the power relation they were inside of, and keeping in mind this keeping in mind this is what allows any investigation, not only the climate or environmental one, but maybe also like human rights one. Keeping in mind this power relation is what allows to grasp and investigate better some conditions of exploitation, coloniality, and privilege, like, for example, Ahmed was talking about before. And keeping in mind this condition is important without resorting to binary oppositions, like, for example, the exploiter and the exploited, or the perpetrator or the victim, but allows you to grasp a more nuanced reality of what is going on. And yeah, this was pretty much a lesson, not only also for us, even though we went through several investigations already. And we also used follow the money technique in the sense that we were, apart from doing this bottom-up approach, this grassroots approach in centering the voices of the muscle farmer, we were also investigating where the EU funds that were supposed to help them were instead being channeled. And then, of course, like as every story, we went through the phases of pitching, writing, and editing, and then publishing. And it got published on The Guardian in English, in Italian for EP Media, and on Spanish for El Salto. So the situation is, I will try to take you there. So Taranto is a very small town in the south of Italy and is known as the city of the two seas. And it has been historically related to his fishing activity as main income of the city. But then it also experienced heavily industrialization due to the opening of a very polluting steel mill. And not only therefore, the strong industrial pressure, but also the climate crisis then came to further worsen the condition of the mussel farmers, which from early 2000 up until now, the number of them working with the sea halved to 800 to 400. Specifically, in the last summer was a turning point because the waters where they work reached 31.5 degrees, and which is very strong heat wave that doesn't take anything to kill all the produce that they were harvesting for more than a year. And then we were keeping in mind all this background to then hold accountable what was going on in terms of funds, because from 2014 to 2020, the EU established MFF funds which were aimed at enhancing coastal community resilience and promote sustainable fishing and protection of biodiversity. But this didn't happen. Indeed, we discovered that the majority of these funds were going to large-scale seafood processing industry instead, because they had the capacity to prove that they were worth the profit, especially with the help, let's say, of private investors that were more interested in investing in something that will be long-term profitable, instead of the mussel farmers that were already experiencing a crisis and were not, at the eyes of these private investors, worth the investment, even though they were those who needed it the most. So we, as I said before, we focused the interviews on the most impacted ones first, and then we went to the European Commission and the Ministry of Agriculture of each country to tell them, hey, we noticed that we gathered these interviews and these data from our sources. So we exposed what was going on the field, and in most cases, the European Commission and the Ministry of Agriculture were not even aware of the difficulties, or that the money were not reaching the people who were intended to. So in terms of data, we were trying to make the most of all the sources that we had at our disposable. Like here, I listed some of them, but there is so much more. And it was mostly for us as journalists, to understand and therefore give back to our audience in an accessible way what was going on the climate and environmental point of view. And at the same time, MFF funds, like the data of the recipients of these funds were not really easy to access. I have access through them through institutional site in Italy called Open Coesione, but my colleagues had access to them through another site. But in general, I think they should be accessible for every European country to freedom of information request, or at least the country you are interested in. If you want to dive deeper, for your country should be able to give you this information. The most challenging, the challenges that we faced the most was that we didn't want to, we were interviewing sources that were already facing a crisis, so we didn't want to further endanger or like worse their condition. Therefore, we were very caring in their sense, in not bothering too much, but we found a lot of collaboration, even though despite their condition and their position. So we were very grateful for that. But before reaching that point, of course, we had to build a lot of trust, also because the mainstream narrative is not to give enough credit to the mussel farmers. So they were not, of course, trusting us as journalists, but we managed to make them understand what we were there for, and therefore we managed to gather their points of view without further endangering their position. And of course, some lesson learned was we should have spent more time as always, but of course we don't have as freelance journalists a lot of time and resources. And also another lesson was that the industrial interests are very strong in the city, and people are not that open or like afraid to speak about them. We also interviewed a source that we kept anonymous because of its illegal activity, and we didn't use the interview for the final product, but we found it relevant to interview also this part of what was going on, because of course it was like clear, like it was evident, like it was a result of the systemic problems that the fishers were experiencing, because going into illegal activities is not something that they were putting in the condition to be, because they cannot. Most of them, due to the crisis, could not afford to be actually legal. So I will pass. I saw the time was up, so I will pass the presentation now to my colleague Sofia.
Thank you, Vittoria. And now we pass to a completely different topic, but still quite linked to like the climate crisis and the effects on local communities. So the case I'm presenting is about the Adriatic pipeline, a pipeline that is under construction from connecting southern Italy, so Puglia region, where also Taranto is located, or what like Vittoria was talking about, towards northern Italy and then northern Europe. This project that this article, let's say, it's also part of a bigger project that I conducted with my colleagues Margherita Capacci and Cecilia Fasciani from Italy and Fatima Karimova from Azerbaijan, and that was also founded by a Journalism Fund. So I second Vittoria's suggestion of taking a look if you don't know it yet, and which was called Azerbaijan to Italy, the Hidden Coast of Gas. So it was uncovering the environmental and social costs of gas extraction in Azerbaijan, in the Caspian Sea, and then on the other side of the southern European southern gas corridor in Italy. And the Azerbaijan part also is quite interesting because we went there ahead of COP29, so it was interesting to see all the greenwashing activities that were going on in that part at the time. Especially while after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Europe was increasing imports from Azerbaijan and then reaching Italy. So now we go to the Italian side. Our reporting happened mostly in Abruzzo, which is a mountain region in central Italy where Apennines are located, and where at the moment the project of this pipeline is proceeding. The constructor is Snam, the main Italian energy infrastructure company, and the project is very massive. We had to understand what to focus on, so we focused only on this specific region. While the pipeline was in planning for 20 years or more, from 2004, the project was fast-tracked in 2022, first, when there was this new interest in Europe for gas, and the Italian government pushed for the idea of transforming Italy into a gas hub, connecting the pipelines from Caucasus and Northern Africa to the rest of Europe, and as well in 2024 for respecting the deadlines of the EU recovery funds. So a project that was very much rushed, even though the civil society population was strongly opposing it for more than 20 years. So there was a contradiction in that. We spent, after research, 1 week on the ground in Abruzzo through different locations, and getting in contact with local population. This area, this mountain internal area, is a very interesting place where we can see some of the dynamics that Ahmed was pointing out before, because it's a relatively secluded part of the country where people are living more and more, going away. There is a high risk of the population because of the lack of services and lack of work. So these communities are relatively marginalized, and it was very important for us to bring out their voices, amplify them, and show that even in these areas there is a lot of resistance and interest into these projects. So first, it was very important, as always, to gain the trust of some people, especially in the topic of the easements and the expropriations that people had to sign in order to allow the pipeline for being built. So we gained their witnessings and their stories about how compensations were underpaid somehow at some level, or other people that claimed that SNAM did not completely respect their right of being of an informed consent and did not give the right information at the moment of pushing them to sign for making the passage of the pipeline. So this was very important. And then there was a lot of background research, first into the energy markets to understand how it works, because it's very complicated. And secondly, into the understanding the seismic hazard of this area, which has historically been subjected to several earthquakes. Last one in 2009, which left a strong psychological mark as well on the populations, and also the reconstruction after 15 years, it's not even finished yet. So local people are rightly afraid of a big pipeline in their territory. And it was a big challenge to understand that, because of we had to talk with the research centers, request information from them, like the National Institute of Geophysics and the Super Institute of Environmental Protection. And also we had to interview experts. Some of them claimed that SNAM had underestimated the risk. And also we had to talk to SNAM because, of course, that's also an important part, to ask them the precise information and ask them to prove that they went through all the security that is required. At the same time, yes, it was, yes, important to bring out their voice as well, and not just to become a mouthpiece of local activists, even though we wanted to amplify their voices. So it was a balance to make. One important question that we had to really center our reporting on was about the benefits. Who benefits this infrastructure? Because with interviews with think tanks and reading reports, there was this clear data that gas demand is lowering in Europe, and also gas, even though included in the EU Green Deal as a transition tool, will have to be phased out according to the decarbonization plans of the European Union. So who is to benefit from an infrastructure that is so costly, so environmentally impactful, and which, according to many experts in the field, will be underused? So we had to also investigate how such infrastructure was financed with public funding. It's like the overall value is 2 billion euros, so it's really massive. And yeah, it was interesting to understand how SNAM profits from this, even though it might not be actually used at all. So this was also another challenge of our investigation. We can go to the next one. So the seismic risk assessment was difficult, and the many angles to the story. We had to really understand which ones we would want to prioritize to make the article understandable. And one last challenge, which is maybe the most unresolved one, was the one of the impact of this, and to bring back to communities what they gave us by sharing their knowledge and bringing us guiding us through our report. Because while we took these months for research and investigation, the pipeline was is under construction and it's still ongoing. So it was difficult to understand how we can bring back journalism to the communities through the lens of making more justice, to making this environmental justice what we all talk about. So that is it. And now for the conclusion of our 2 case studies, I'm bringing back the voice to Vittoria, that will give us a general reflection on that we've been thinking about.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think, as you said, as final conclusion, bringing back to the communities I feel like is one of the most important aspect of reporting, because I feel like the role of journalism in this is not only about for the sake of the publication itself, but it's also about holding those accountable while involving the communities, the most impacted communities that usually are not even aware of, let's say, their power in shifting this narrative, or like this framing. And as we were reflecting, as a final conclusion of these 2 works, we just wanted to, as final, let's say, aim of this, we wanted to underline how climate as well as environmental crises are systemic issues, and it's very important here when we talk about these specific case studies or any other story, to highlight that these stories are not impersonal, but are a result of human drive forces and human drive interests. And there are specific key drivers in this climate injustice. Most of the time, specifically in the, let's say, most mainstream reporting of climate or environmental investigation, we can see how the narrative is very much impersonal, in the sense that I don't know, it's about extreme weather, rising temperature, or that are, you know, impersonating the causes of the crisis. But it's not only that, like the reality is much more nuanced, and we should also hold accountable who is taking advantage of this situation. And in both of our case study, who was taking advantages was political decision prioritizing short-term economic gains and corporate interests who found these communities easily sacrificable, let's say, to their own plans and their own objectives. So we did like, we felt like the role of journalism in that was to gather the voices of our characters to then show this contradiction, let's say, and how to show how the condition they were in was not only about a general climate crisis or a general environmental crisis, but it was like also the result of they were the result of the systemic management and institutional inaction that was considering them sacrificable for their interests and not to put at the center, as we try on the other side to do. As a consequence of this, let's say, mainstream narrative who doesn't center the voices of the people or doesn't, you know, put enough stress on interest, like human-driven interests and short-term economic gains, is how the community feels powerless in this, because they then have to face the burden of a crisis that is not only climatic or environmental, but it's also like due to all the things I was saying before, systemic mismanagement and economic crisis that doesn't see any profit in recognizing their condition. And therefore these exclude them not only from the narrative itself, but also make them feel powerless in the decision-making process. So even though, and especially this happens to sources who have always been also not given enough credit or space. For example, my case of the mussel farmers is emblematic of this, but also most of the activists Sofia was talking about, they are usually discredited or because environmental protection or just the idea of deciding for your own territory, deciding for territory you're living in is not enough to just hold accountable a project that is not profitable or like that doesn't is not a voice of their interest. So as well as our main characters as also scientists, sometimes we were facing, they were feeling some kind of, let's say, lack of hopes, let's say, especially the scientists, for example, I had the pleasure to interview and that they were helping our sources in trying to understand more what was going on in terms of lacking of access of these funds and further endangering of this condition and this crisis. So as a result of this, we feel like we should take more action and more responsibility in understanding journalism and its crucial role as filling the gap, bridging this gap of reporting. Not only documenting the communities and their struggle, but also supporting them, as Sofia was saying before, and I was saying, it's super important to bring back the narrative, but also like involve the communities, for example, in the impact of the results you want to hold accountable the institution for. So the shift of storytelling should move away from portraying communities as victims, but amplifying instead their voices and their demands of justice, make them understand that, or like make them like empower how their demands are valid, even though they don't match, the general interests of the human driven forces I was talking about before. And especially it's very important, and but also like very challenging sometimes to connect these struggles to the general broader European policies or private interest forces, like the one of Sofia, for example, of the company. And because they are, even though they seem so far away from them, or like the communities themselves, they feel they are so powerless and far away from all of these, is like also our main goal to feel these, to make them closer to each other and make them understand the causes and the consequences of these two aspects. And then these, of course, create also, let's say, a platform for audiences to allow them to feel closer to their to the characters, and instead of choosing these distant institutional narratives, choose more empathic ones who, again, can fill the gap between what is actually going on the field and what is actually being claimed by a company or like by a European policy. And these will, as a consequence, we hope so, if we act in this way, then it will be easier to expose political and corporate responsibility, as well as hold policymaker and company private interests accountable. And in this way, reclaim, the agency of these people in shaping their future, the future of their territories, without the fear of their repression and exclusion. So, yeah, if you have any questions or about that, we are happy to answer. And these are our contacts if you want to reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Sofia, Vittoria, and the whole Marea Media team for sharing these inspiring and eye-opening reports, these powerful examples on how local struggles connect to global climate justice issues, and also for putting the spotlight on the people most affected by those issues. I think the call to action that you were sharing at the end is very, very inspiring for everyone in the audience, for all journalists that have joined us today. I especially like also to see how these investigative pieces were stronger by joining forces between journalists from different horizons, different backgrounds, getting in touch with activists, with scientists, with local people. All of this, I mean, it's very, very inspiring. And I would like to remind our audience actually that connecting all of these dots is also part of the goals of the AMWAJ community. So this has been already the case in the past, and connections keep growing among the Mediterranean and beyond. So keep bringing us new stories. Thank you very much for all of this to the three of you. Now we have a little bit of time, around 15 minutes. We open the floor for questions. I have prepared a few, but I see that we already have a couple of them on the Q&A box. So let's start with that, and we'll see how the time goes. So there is one for you, Ahmed, from Luis Saran. She's particularly interested in knowing more about how you go about attributing climate events to climate change, as expertise is not always available, also neither reliable data in regions sometimes, and it requires funds that media don't often have to environmental stories. This is something that has been definitely covered. So the main question is, are there ways to circumvent these challenges and prove causation?
Okay, thanks, Claudia, and thanks, Luis, for these interesting questions. Yes, we are facing some challenges to be in touch with the sources, and also to get reliable databases. But how can we get around the challenges? There are many ways. The first way, there are specialized in experts who want and they are ready to collaborate with investigative journalists or journalists in general who are interested in covering climate change. And here I wanted to mention one database about experts that is issued by Carbon Brief. So I can actually put the link of this database. It is interesting database, and also there are many databases that is international databases, such as a database issued by IMF, and it is international. It covers all countries, and also there is database related to and issued by World Bank, so you can get reliable data from the World Bank about your country, and they are so reliable. But here I wanted to give you a piece of advice that you wanted to compare the databases or the data that you can extract from different databases, the local databases and international databases. So you can look into them and compare between both of them. It is a kind of fact-checking that's required for investigative journalists to get reliable data. And about the funds, I think that it is something important for as a journalist sources for our stories. But at ARIJ, we are open to fund the investigative stories related to Arab countries, not only climate stories, but any kind of stories you are interested in. And there are also some funders you can get grant. For example, I think that's I forget actually the name of it, but there are many funders, so I can put the link of some of them so you can go through them, and there are some grants specialized in environmental issue and in climate change.
Thank you, Ahmed. I think those are very useful tips. Maybe, well, Sofia or Vittoria, if you want to add something to that. Otherwise, well, I pass to the next question, and maybe you can combine both. You have covered this, I think, in what you have presented before, but indeed, it's on our minds. What are the main challenges that you face in accessing and interviewing local unaffected communities? And how do you deal with or overcome those challenges? It's a question from Salma Kadri. Thank you very much for that. And well, I think you already mentioned some of the challenges, but maybe you can go a little bit more into details in a general from your experience as journalists.
Well, I will, I think, be a bit quick, because in this specific case, while we had to gain the trust of the people that showed us the documents about the expropriation for the pipeline, for example, in the other cases, many people were very willing to talk, and because they are like sincerely worried about this specific infrastructure, so they need to be vocal. Actually, they have been not very much heard by mainstream media and so on. So in this case, at least among the many challenges we faced during this report, talking to people, the affected communities, was relatively easy, as they really needed some platform to bring out their voices. So and instead, for the other ones, I think once you get in contact with the community and you they will like having these activists and people that are well respected in the community next to you, when you start talking to like a more affected person that might be a little more reluctant, they also like see that you come with other people that they respect and they trust, and this helps you, I think, always to make alliances with the local activists, let's say. So maybe in the case of Vittoria, it was a little more difficult, so maybe you can add something.
Yes, it was pretty much what already Sofia said. Just maybe one thing I will add for my sources that were, of course, they were not trusting journalists that much, as well. We always have to keep that in mind, that possibility. But what we managed to overcome this challenge, let's say, by make them understand that we care about the story, and we care about their perspective being included in the fairest way possible. And building trust is never easy and takes a lot of time for people to open up. But for us, I think it was easier to in this process to just make them understand we were present. So like do a lot of calls, a lot of meetings without recorder or like without the purpose of journalism itself, but just to get to know each other, understand each other, and just to get close to each other. I think that was the most important part that then helps everyone to feel more comfortable and like also to keep in mind that it's not only for the sake of the publication, but it's also for the sake of creating an impact, like real impact. So it's very important to create a valuable human connection with your sources.
Would you like to add something, Ahmed, from your experience?
Yep, I think that Sofia and Victoria took everything about it, so I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you for your answers. We have a few more minutes, so well, I was also thinking about some other question that might be interesting. I hope you have some ideas. Otherwise, it's not a problem. But we have been talking a lot about awareness and the impact that we want to reach with going into climate justice reporting. But maybe do you have on mind some examples of climate justice stories that have led to real policy or real societal changes? Maybe do you have some inspiring example on mind? It can be your own reports, but I think this is ongoing, unfortunately, in the ones that you have shared today. But yes, that was one of my questions.
Well, I'll go, not because I have an example in mind, but I'm just thinking of some issues. Let's say, okay, in this specific case of this pipeline, the pipeline, they're making it, so there is not much that can be done about that at this point. But I think like not one maybe report that comes to mind, but like a series of reports can, for example, for other projects connected to, for example, the first part of the pipeline, the top, so the part that is in Puglia, not the reports themselves did not completely stop the project because it's there, but they like helped to push communities, for example, to have higher compensations for the people who were expropriated from their lands, or have a growing attention to environmental issues in that area. Of course, the issues, as Vittoria, who covers Puglia much more than me, knows, are still very much present, but there is maybe more awareness among population and awareness of their rights and what they can reclaim from the corporations. Also, during time, like we've seen that like in the past, like maybe 10, 15 years ago, during this process that has been very long for this pipeline, it was much easier for SNAM to bypass informed consent of communities. While now, at least they can't, they can push, they can find ways to enforce their will and their interests still, but they cannot do it as easily as they used to do it 15 years ago in these same territories, where they were very easily taking advantage of illiterate farmers and making them sign things. So I wouldn't say one report changed everything, but many constant monitoring and reporting helped through time. What do you like? Maybe if other people have something this is my optimistic view that I try to keep. Otherwise, it's very hard to keep on going with this job if you don't have a little optimism in you, at least.
Exactly. Yes. No, I think you are totally right. And this can at least block some actions, bring awareness, bring activism, stronger activism in the area. So definitely there are powerful stories behind that can rise. And just before we close the questions, thank you, Sofia, for that. Marta, our colleague Marta Castillo, regarding the previous questions, she also had something to add. In how do you make sure that the local community is not victimized and that you give them that agency in your story? And she mentions that she thinks that this is key in this type of investigation. So if you have a final word on that, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
It's about local communities. I think that it is so important to handle them as any source, any kind of source. We wanted to get evidences from them. So if someone claims that I have been affected and I got some healthy diseases because of the emissions coming from the factories surrounding me. So I want actually to get the statements, or actually I wanted to ask the doctors and to build this causal link between the healthy diseases and the emissions. So here I handle the local communities such as any source, and I wanted to get the evidence. It is one of my first advice in this regard. The second one is that there are some local communities that wanted to overrate the journalism. I can't give a promise. Yes, I will cover the problem, but I don't have a magic solution for your problem. So it is out of my hands to undertake some measures to improve your life. So I want to also to underline this for the communities. The thing that I want to build trust with the communities. I can build this communities to be honest and honest all details I need for readers or them in this place or in this area, and I can hold the power into account in this regard. So I think that it is the best way to handle the local communities.
Thank you, Ahmed. I see Vittoria and Sofia agreeing with their faces. Well, we're run out of time for questions, but I think those were already very interesting. I wanted to sincerely thank our speakers today, Ahmed Ashour, Sofia Turati, Vittoria Torsello. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise and your powerful stories with us and making this session possible. Thank you also to ARIJ and Marea Media extending this and also to the audience for your interest, your active participation and engagement. Of course, I have seen many people asking for resources for the presentation. We will be sharing an email with everyone in a few days, also with this recording, so you can all check all of this. And before we wrap up, my colleague Mariam, based in Lebanon, wants to present our next Istidama fundraising campaign from AMWAJ, which is called Blue Filter. It's founded by Salah El Sadi from the Switchers community, who is a Gaza-based company that provides an innovative water purification technology using natural plant-based materials to deliver clean and safe drinking water in such a difficult moment that they are living in the region. So Mariam, please tell us a bit more about this important initiative.
Yes, thank you, Claudia, and thanks to everyone for this very interesting webinar. So we're going now into a different topic, as Claudia just said. So Blue Filter, it's a Gaza-based company, a small company that was founded in 2021, and it's providing like a natural and plant-based water purification technology. So why blue water? Probably some of you are aware that access to clean water has been a severe problem in Palestine, actually, for decades, due to like many reasons. In Gaza, this was severely worsened in the last 1.5 years due to the war. the blockade and also the destruction of essential infrastructure. So just to give some numbers, in November 2023, UNRWA actually estimated that approximately 70% of Gaza's population was forced to drink contaminated or overly salty water. So, I mean, we have like slightly salty water in Lebanon, so I think I can imagine how much worse it is and how difficult it is to get access to clean water. So Blue Filter has been trying to tackle this. Salah As-Sadi, as I said, founded the company in 2021. And what they were actually offering is a range of different products. So like smaller and larger filtration systems for like, depending on the premises or depending on the size, let's say, where you want to use it. So it can be for households, for farms, for companies. And there's also some, which I think now is very important. There's like a small emergency kit that can be used for crisis and war. So if anyone is in a refugee camp or has to flee or wherever, there's like a small emergency kit that they have developed. Before the war, actually, Blue Filter was a success story. They had like many communities and clients in Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza, but they also had actually some pilot projects in Iraq and Jordan. And now the war has destroyed this little company with such a big impact, and not only the company, but also, of course, many of the infrastructure they had installed in Gaza. So since we're working with the Switchers community, we came across the work of Salah, and he's determined to rebuild. So we decided to make a small fundraiser for him. And this time, as Salah said, it's not just for farmers, it's for the thousands of displaced and suffering people in Gaza who lack access to safe drinking water. So we've been doing it, like we've been launching a small fundraiser on our website. And what we are asking you is, if you can't donate, I mean, it would be great to donate, please share it in your networks, please raise awareness about this topic. And I think it's similar like with the making impact through reports, like also you can make an impact, like if many people make a small donation, there can be an impact. So thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mariam. So my colleague Emin has shared the link. The fundraising campaign is already available on our website. And yes, we encourage, as she just mentioned, all of you to donate or at least share and support this initiative, Blue Filter. So thank you for that. And before we close the session, I would like to encourage you all to apply the insights that have been shared today in your own reporting. This event aimed to inspire others to include the climate justice lens in reporting on climate change, to support climate action, and especially to give voice to vulnerable and local communities. So as journalism has the power to drive real change, and each of you and each of us as media professionals and storytellers, we can make the difference in how climate justice is addressed. So thank you all for being here. We look forward to continuing this conversation in future sessions. Stay safe and keep telling the stories that matter. Thank you very much to all of our speakers, and see you soon.
Thank you, Claudia. Bye. Have a nice day. Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.